speaking about normal, average people and their concerns and the concerns that affect their lives, I think a lot of people wonder why when something like Zika arrives, a health emergency, that there seems to be such difficulty in the Congress of getting more money for more Zika virus to deal with the emergency. And they wonder, you know, what is the problem? What is the real problem? What is going on here?
Well, as you know, President Obama in February, on the basis of science and evidence and data, asked for $1.9 billion for the Zika virus, to fight the Zika virus, whether it's through research for a vaccine or vector control prevention, all of that. It's just a philosophical difference between Democrats and Republicans in the Congress. They would not pay for the money and put up the money, A. And B, the Zika virus, it's a terrible thing. Because it is also sexually transmitted. And they have said, no matter what we do, we're not going to have contraception as part of our...
So the opposition is basically they don't want to fund it, or it costs too much?
Both. It's both. See, when you have an emergency, and Joe knows this from where they're, whether it was a natural disaster, whatever, when you have an emergency, you immediately have an emergency spending bill. And it is not paid. You don't have to say, well, how are we going to pay for it when we have a natural disaster, as we have now in Louisiana. So they made a departure from what would be the normal, regular order, which is let's just do it. Instead, they said, well, take the money from Ebola, which eventually the NIH had to do because there was no money. So this comes back to the real basic difference between Democrats and Republicans. Yeah. You have trickle-down economics, which says give tax breaks to the wealthiest people in our country, let it trickle down, and if it creates jobs, that would be good. If it doesn't, so be it. That's the free market. Or middle class economics, an economy that works for everyone. Now, why it relates to this is because when you have the trickle down, the same crowd says, now you go balance the budget. And you go balance the budget because the tax cuts are tax expenditures. They cost money. So now you go take it out of cut Pell Grants, don't expand some of our investments into the future. And when something like this comes along, and we have another one, we have opioids. They haven't put up the money for opioids yet either.
So, Mike, the battle is, and it really started, Tom Coburn was sort of on the forefront of this in the House and in the Senate, would say we're $19 trillion in debt. Yes, we'll do this, but we have to pay for it first. And that really has been, you know, for some time, I think, a battle between Republicans and Democrats alike. I think Tom one time even refused to pay for relief in his home state of Oklahoma until it got offset. And the Republican argument is, to be fair, you know, we've got a $19 trillion debt, we've got a $4.5 trillion budget. We ought to be able to find money to offset these expenditures.
But if I may, they never want to offset a tax cut for the wealthiest people in the country, which doesn't do anything to create jobs except it increases the deficit. So it's inconsistent. I completely agree with pay as you go. If you have something you want to give somebody a tax break, or you want to make an investment, pay as you go. That's our democratic mantra, pay as you go. But when you have an emergency, it's going to end up costing you more if you avoid the investment.
Obviously, yeah.
You keep talking about this difference between Republicans and Democrats.
Yes, ma'am.
Hillary Clinton, your nominee, is out on the trail saying the difference is actually between normal conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, and Donald Trump.